Hey everyone, Grant for the Flame Learning channel. In this video, we'll go through the quick process of setting up centralized color management for the Flame products. This will allow any system in your facility to access a shared folder containing any color policies that you may be standardizing across your production pipeline. So without manually copying color policies between multiple machines, all your Flame products will be able to access this central location and share these color policies between the projects. Now let's start off by looking at what you get with the standard Flame product install. Starting at the startup screen for Flame, when you create a new project, you can set up your resolutions, etc. But you can also define the color management for the new project. This is in the form of color policies, which are XML files containing information on how color will be managed within the Flame projects. If you want to have an in-depth look into color management, please watch the entire series on color management in the Flame products. Now, when choosing which color policy to use, you can use the standard Autodesk presets, which give you a basic starting point. These are pre-installed with your application, and they are available on this local workstation. These presets have a permanent location on your local storage. This is in contrast to the shared presets, which could be pointed to any directory or folder, including a centralized location. By default, the shared presets are pointing to a local directory on your system. Now, the Autodesk presets won't change, but the shared presets will update when we change to the centralized location. We'll cancel the project creation for now and launch into an existing project. Once Flame is up and running, call up the Preferences menu at the bottom right of the screen and choose the Color Management option. Now, I've already customized the color management for this project, and there are some specific input rules and viewing rules that I would like to ultimately use as a centralized color policy. But before we do any of that, look at the bottom of the menu. Here you will find the Collaboration and Services shared path. This specific path is the path used for the shared color policy presets that will be displayed at the startup screen. Any color policy exporting at this very moment will export to this local path. If you wanted to then use the exported color policies as part of a centralized color management, you would have to go to this local path and copy the files to their central location. An alternative approach is to set up the centralized color management first and then export the color policies to that location. This should save on having to copy files outside of the Flame products. So close the Preferences and exit Flame. On the Flame desktop, you should be able to launch the Flame Setup application. Looking at the tabs at the top of the window, choose Color Management. Here you will find the shared path for Collaboration and Services. Now, before you proceed any further, you must have already set up a shared directory or folder within your local network. It can be anywhere within your facility. It could be on a SAN, NAS, or a basic server. You can also use any OS you want. But what is extremely important is that the path is visible to all the machines within the network, and the correct read and write permissions are set on the shared directory. So in my case, I have got a centralized directory at a specific mount, and you would have your own. To edit the shared path, click on the text box. Now delete the current local path and type in your new centralized path. Click Apply, and this will write the new path into the syncolorconfig.xml file. Now, you could edit this file directly via a terminal, but then you would need to manually copy the transforms to the new location as well. So editing the path through the Flame Setup application is easier and faster. Once this is done, close the Setup application and relaunch Flame. In the Startup screen, when you create a new project and look at the color policies, the first thing to notice is that there are no shared policies available. This is simply because we haven't copied or exported any presets into their new location. Exit Create New Project and launch Flame. All your current projects will still be accessible, and they will still be using any color policies they were created with. As a reminder, your selected color policy is copied into the new project when it is created, and this aids with archiving any color management data. So you should think of the policies in the shared location as templates when creating new projects. Changes to the templates will have no effect on any projects already created. Now getting back to Flame, go to the Preferences menu and look at the Color Management menu. This time, the Collaboration and Services shared path points to my centralized color management location. Any exported policies will now be saved here. Click the name box for the color policy, and let's call it Custom Color 001. Now there are two types of export. There is the standard export, and there is the export as locked. Export as locked means that you cannot edit the color policy within the Flame interface. This is very useful when enforcing a color policy across multiple users, and you don't want them to mess with the color management settings. If you did need to edit it, you can still do it in an external text editor. The standard export creates the same files, but they could be edited within the Flame interface and exported as another version. The choice is yours, but it's a secure option to have. Click Export, and the current color policy will be exported with the new name. Let's look at what now happens when Flame is started again. We'll exit the Preferences and exit the application. Start Flame one more time. Looking at the Create New Project settings, you will see that the Shared Color Policy presets are now available. Currently, it is pointing to the Shared Central Location, and there is our custom color policy that was created and exported from Flame. You can have as many Shared Color Policy presets as you need. Now you will need to change the shared path on every system that you would like to access the centralized color management. Just use the steps you saw earlier in this video. Any new projects you or other users create from this point can use the centralized color management policies from the shared location. Now it's also worth mentioning that a local copy of the shared color policy is saved in your project's SynColor directory using symbolic links on your local workstation. This means that when it comes to archiving, even with centralized color management, a variation of the color management gets archived with the project. However, this does not consider the original color policies at the centralized shared location. I suggest backing those up separately if you want a backup of these policies. Finally, I just want to talk a bit more about the symbolic links that I just mentioned. The symbolic links maintain the SynColor directories between the centralized location and your local workstation. This allows all the server processes running alongside Flame to be able to interpret the color spaces used for your various bits of media. The reason for mentioning this technical bit is if you change the centralized color management path in the middle of a project, you stand the risk of breaking these links, and the color management may not work correctly. However, these links are only really needed if you added color spaces using your own custom LUTs. And even in this case, you may use the shell to manually copy the links for any ongoing projects from the original shared home to the new one. Please bear this in mind as you set up the centralized color management as part of your pipeline. I hope you have found this video useful, and please be sure to check out the other workflows, features and enhancements to the Flame 2018.2 update. Comments, feedback and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel for future videos.